So, hi, anyone who might be out there. I've decided to hop on and do some readings today. Probably not for very long, but I thought, what the heck? I've got a little free time, and let's do a few readings. I'll start just by lighting a candle and burning some Palo Santo. Hi, Priscilla. Welcome. I'll put the list together in just a moment. Live stream scheduled for Sunday. I had a little extra time today, so I thought, you know what? Let's use that time wisely. So I'm using my CBD Tarot de Marseille. That's the Convert Bendove Tarot de Marseille. That's the deck I'll be using today. My standard deck that I usually do on my YouTube channel. All right, now this Palo Santo's burning. And I've made myself a cup of tea. Okay, I'll set that aside to burn out. I am drinking a black tea. It's peach chrysanthemum. All right, so let me put my list together. It is the 1st of May. Hope everyone had a nice May Eve or Beltane if you celebrate those. And it's a full moon as well, which is exciting. All right, so I'm thinking I'm only going to do like 4 or 6 readings today. We'll see what happens. So I'll start with 4, and I see Priscilla's first, followed by Joss. And that'll be good to get us started. All right. Let me do a little preliminary shuffling because this deck has not been taken out of the box since my last live stream last Sunday. All right. And we'll do 3 card readings today. And I see Priscilla's here asking about her love life. And it looks like it's just a question of a general reading about love is what we've got here. All right. So at the moment, right now, what are the general energies about love in Priscilla's life? Hi, Fabi. Welcome. All right. So, general energies surrounding love for Priscilla. $10 coins, 10 batons, 6 coins. So we've got all Pips cards here, preponderance of coins, and a decrease in the total number of coins after they meet with all those batons in the middle there. So, you asked about love, right? And so, um, I assume you're single. If I'm wrong about that, let me know. We don't see any people cards here to suggest specific people, but I suspect that there might be something here going on regarding overthinking things, energy, and maybe that putting too much pressure on you at the moment, and that's something that you might need to work through in order to kind of get things moving with your love life, if that makes sense. So, let me explain why, or where it is in the cards that I see that. With the tens, we have 2 tens, right? Which is a lot. 10 is the most, or the most intense, we could say, um, of any card in the deck in terms of like degree, right? Because there's no 11, for example. There's a page, right? But there's no 11 for any of the suits. So there's more coins here than we would have on any one card. And with the coins, I think about what we value, what we transact with, what we negotiate with. Think about what you do with a coin, right? And so when I see 10 of them here, it's like really intense uh, thinking or really intense values that you might have. But what are they doing? They're turning into 10 batons. And with batons, we can think about work, effort, pressure, right? There's a lot of effort that needs to be expended to get all 10 of these batons so very neatly woven into one another. Yeah. So these are the first things that pops out to me is the way in which 10 coins turn into 10 batons. And notice, of course, there's no cups here, right? And you're asking about a general love reading. And so when I don't see any cups, I'm thinking, okay, because of course, cups are the suit we would go to looking for love, right? So if I'm not seeing cups, then that tells me there's some kind of obstacle. There's something in the way of love, generally speaking, because that's how you ask the question, right? And so what might those obstacles be? And I think it's going to have to do with your overthinking things, yeah, and that putting too much pressure on you. Um, and so I think what needs to happen and the thinking needs to sort of be pared down, so to speak. So not disappear, right? But from 10 to move down to 6, meaning like there needs to be a clear movement. With 6, I think of paths or channels, right? I think of getting things from point A to point B in a clear kind of way. And so there needs to be um, what's the word? Streamlining of how you're thinking about your love life. And while I'm waiting to see if Priscilla has any comments on that. I'm just going to look at the chat because I see it is popping off over here. So um, let me add some folks. Fabi, I will add, and Jean. And Maria. And Pink. And then I'm going to close the list at that point, though I may reopen it. We'll see. My plan was not to do a big 2-hour or 3-hour live stream today. Okay. So, okay, Priscilla's here and listening. And yeah, so what I think is going on is there's too much thinking happening, and that's maybe putting like overthinking, which is putting pressure on, right? So one other thing that we could do, and that I think can be useful is um, I'll just throw 2 more cards down, and I'll put one above and one below, which will form a cross. And the card above will be like, what attitude or action could you take that is most likely to improve on this scenario? And the card below will be what you should absolutely not do. And we'll sort of read those as a pair in tandem with one another. So up here, Page of Cups. And down here, Queen of Coins. So this is saying be like the Page of Cups, don't be like the Queen of Coins, right? Which is really just reinforcing, I think, what the first 3 cards have told us. The Page of Cups is the dreamer who is still learning how relationships work, which means that, of course, they're vulnerable and they can get hurt, right? As opposed to the Queen of Coins, this is the intelligent and shrewd, enterprising woman who she knows what she's doing, right? And she's calculating and methodical. And she can be a healer and nurturing too, like good at taking care of other people because she has the resources to do that, right? But seeing these 2 court cards come up is pretty clearly saying if you're in coins world, right? There's a clear preponderance of coins in the entire spread, then you're thinking too much about negotiating and transacting and exchange as opposed to what do you feel, right? Where is your heart? And it might be the case that focusing so much on ideas is maybe like a defense mechanism to prevent you from getting hurt, right? And this card is saying, like, if you're going to be the Page of Cups, which is the recommendation here, you need to dream a little bit. Perhaps I always think of the Page of Cups as a dreamer, right? But also recognize that you still have some things to learn about your love life and about forming relationships with others. And so, um, it's not like you're the Queen of Cups where you've got it figured out. And it's sort of saying like, be a page. You don't want to be a queen at all, right? With regard to your love life. And so there might be a need to allow yourself to be a little more emotionally vulnerable. And that might involve um, paring down, as I phrased it earlier, how much you're thinking, and try to do more like feeling instead. Okay, so that's the recommendation here is act in accordance with what the Page of would do, not with what the Queen of Coins would do. Okay. All right, so let's pull up the next one here, which will be Jas. You're welcome, Priscilla. Very welcome. So next up, we have Jas Happy Medium. So, Jas, if you're here, let us know. Cool, you're here. Great. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. And I've just popped on here to do a short live stream today. I've got 6 folks on my list, and then I went ahead and closed the list, but I might reopen it. It sort of depends on how long these next 5 readings take and how much energy I've got left and what time it is. So you're welcome to hang out, but I want to commit to honoring these readings that I've agreed to give. All right, so Jas posted, I think. All right, and it's, does my Aunt Lydia have any messages for me? Okay. She has passed away. All right. I'm sorry to hear about your aunt. So we'll pull 3 cards for Jas Happy Medium to see if we have a message from Aunt Lydia. Okay. Do we have a message from Aunt Lydia for Jas Happy Medium? Okay, we'll pull 3 cards. King of Coins. 4 batons. Knight of Cups. So I'm going to read what I see here. If you feel like adding any context, feel free to do that. Because I don't know your gender. I don't know if you're a guy or if you might be more accurately represented by a knight. So what I see here, I see 2 people who are facing one another. One is likely older or more mature, and one is likely younger or a little less mature, right? They're facing other, these 2 people, but there's something in between them that's blocking them getting closer. Okay? So Joss is a female and she was your aunt. So I think I don't see a card here that would represent your aunt. So I think that the message is about your relationship with somebody else, right? Like, I don't know if maybe you had an uncle or it could be a father figure. I suspect then that you are here as the Knight of Cups, and the message is about the 4 batons between you and this other person. So, like, this could be another member of your family. The King of Cups could be another member of your family. Given that they have a coin, it could refer to somebody who, in one way or another, has access to resources like money, right? And it's so interesting to me the way that they are looking at each other and yet blocked, right? With the 4 batons in between them. With the 4 batons, we can think of a stable situation, but be like nothing's changing, right? Almost like, they're facing each other, but no, they just closer to one another, and I'm thinking that closeness is probably a metaphorical kind of closeness, right? Especially if we think about the way in which the knight is offering up the cup, right? Offering up the cup, and they're on though to say like, "Hey, I want to share this with you," right? Like I have feelings that I want to share with you. I want to build a relationship with you. And the king is sitting there. Notice their body is facing actually away. They're kind of turned away from the knight, but their head then is turned to look at them as though they're looking over their shoulder, as though to say like, "Well, it may not look like I am interested in speaking with this person, being in agreement with this person or developing a relationship with them, right? But now I'm rethinking it. I turn my head back and I'm rethinking it. Maybe I missed something about that person." Um, so, um, you would know better than I who that person could be. Uh, oh, and here we have in the chat your cousin. Okay. A couple days ago, told me that I was the safe place, but then he never texted. Dad is also a Virgo, and my cousin's a Virgo. Yeah, so it could refer to either of the, because I don't know how old your cousin might be. Sometimes cousins are very different in ages from than we are. Um, but I suspect it's someone who's probably older than you, right? So, um, if your cousin is like an older guy, this could absolutely be him. Otherwise, perhaps it's your dad. But I think what she's saying, like the message from your Aunt Lydia here, is about she wants you to recognize that there's like a fence up between you and this other person, right? And that even though you're sort of the two of you are trying to see things, your eyes are ready to meet, except that there's this kind of fence or wall that's sort of in the way, right? And so the implication there, I think, is she's trying to get you to say like, what can you do to like get the fence to go away, right? Like, um, that I suspect that that's what it is. It's about like the two of you are trying to get close, but there's an obstacle between you. Address that obstacle. Yeah, I think that's the message there. Um, and to look again at the 4 of batons to think about like, well, wait, what is the obstacle? Um, with fours, I think of stability, but that also means things don't change, right? So this would suggest to me like the building of the relationship is sort of at a state, right? It's not getting any smaller, but it's also not getting any bigger. It's kind of plateaued. And so something would need to kind of shake it up here to close things off. I mean, thinking in terms of balance, we could think about the 4 suits of the tarot and the fact that we have every suit represented except the swords, right? We've got a coin, we've got a cup, and we've got our batons. So we might say, well, what swords are missing? So maybe someone needs to come in with a sword and like cut down the barrier between you. So you say your cousin's a little older than you and your dad's 59. So, so it is then I would go if we know there's 2 possible guys who are older, who would fit into the picture, then I would look to the coin, right? And so here I would think, particularly of profession. So, like, what do these people do for a living or with their lives? And with the coin, it of course could be something to do with money, but it could just be business in general or something that's like analytical, right? That's about facts and figures or like using one's mind in some way, um, including things like teaching, even. If we think of values and the way that teachers sort of pass on values and coins represent values. Okay, so your dad's getting a new job at the federal center, your cousin has no job right now. That sounds like it's the federal center sounds like it could very well refer to your dad. For the cousin, I might just ask, like, even if he's not employed right now, what maybe profession has he trained for or worked in the past? And if he sort of has no profession, he's probably not a king. Right? And so this is a king here, and if it's someone who's like, well, he's sort of, he's worked here and there, but he doesn't really do anything, that's not a king, right? A king is someone who's fairly well established in some way, and so, that's sounding more and more like it's probably your dad that's being referred to here. So, the message then, uh, is like, What are you what are you gonna do about the barrier between you and your dad? I think that's the message that your aunt is trying to pass along. And yes, Fabi, you are up next in just a second. Okay. You say that you and your dad are very different people, and that is certainly reflected in the cards, given that the 2 of you come from different suits. Because often I was sort of kinda thinking of saying this, but didn't because I wasn't sure that it was pertinent, but, um, often people or court cards from the same suit will represent families, right? So if we have a king of coins, we might expect that their wife or partner would be the queen of coins, right? And then that a child would be the page or the knight of coins, right? But here, seeing two figures from different suits, but who we've narrowed down pretty closely, I think that this is your father. Um, Seeing that they're from different suits does suggest it's almost like, what do they have in common? Right? Like, you're saying you're of course from the same family, but one has a cup and one has a coin. That's they're almost like they're from different families, even though it's the same family. And so that fits. That they it's even though they're family members, it's like how what do they have in common, right? Besides the fact of being family members, which I actually think is sort of more common than not. Um, But you mentioned spiritual gifts, and I would think of the suit of cups as being related to the spiritual world, whereas the suit of coins is the more mundane, practical world of business and money, and definitely sounds like someone who would work at a federal center. So, yeah, and so there's a stalemate between you, a barrier between you, um, that certainly may have its roots in your very different personalities. But I think your aunt is saying like your family. And so, despite your differences, see if there's a way in you, right? Um, so, I'll leave it at that. But that brings us then to Fabi. Fabi, if you're here and would like to post your question. All right, and it's a timing question. So Fabi wants to know, will my person contact me in the next 7 days? Okay, will Fabi's love interest, romantic interest, contact Fabi in the next 7 days? Three cards. 8 swords. The Empress. 9 swords. So, this looks like a no to me. This looks like a no to me. And explain why. Um, the Empress, I think, is you, right? And so you're sort of sitting, maybe waiting for the message to come through. And what surrounds you is just all swords, right? With in the context of your question, like, is a message coming through? Well, generally, I don't think of swords as a message, unless it's like, if we're talking about like a fight or an argument or something like that, then swords maybe could be a message. But if we're talking about a romantic interest, unless you expect this person to like, unless the message comes in the form of a sword, like, then I don't see this as being a message, right? I think of with swords, I think of metal and steel, and it's quiet and it's cold, right? We do have maybe a flower that's growing up here, and a flower can be a message, right? If you think about like, oh, I don't know, I don't know that we do this much anymore, but like you go to dinner at somebody's house and maybe you bring them a bouquet of flowers like that just as a gift. Um, so in that sense, it's kind of a bit of appreciation or a kind of gift, a message, right? But if we read from left to right, as I usually do, unless there's a good reason not to, the flower turns into a sword, right? As though like it gets cut away. So maybe there's the tiniest little beginnings of a message coming, but does it reach you? It looks like in the direction you're looking, it's cold, right? It's cold like the steel of a sword. So unfortunately, I'm thinking in the next 7 days, probably not for this. That's what it looked. Um, Other things I would look for in a message would be like two human figures facing each other, right? Or even just present at all, but we just have, you're on your own here, right? In the spread, it's just you. So I'm thinking probably not in the next 7 days. Certainly could be after that. Could be on the 8th day, but for the time window that we've set, I'm going to say probably not. Okay, let me see. That brings us to Jean. Jean, if you are here, I can do a reading for you. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. I'm Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, doing some free live readings. I am also available now for paid private readings if anyone is interested in those. You can check out the Linktree link in the video description for more information. I do one-on-one video conferencing readings, live video conferencing readings, as well as pre-recorded audio readings. You're also, if you'd like to inquire about a reading, you're welcome to email me hermit.lantern@gmail.com. All right, so Jean. Oh, Jean, you knew I was going to be on today. You got the message through the universe. Yeah, I didn't schedule it. In fact, I sort of thought that maybe I would, and I had some free time this afternoon, and I was considering doing some reading instead, but I asked my cards, and they said I should go ahead and pop on. So here I am. Okay, so Jean's question is, what are I's feelings and intentions towards you? You're going to see him in a few hours. Okay. So you're about to see this person I in a few hours. You want to know, like, where's his mind right now? Where's his heart? I assume it's a he. Maybe I'm wrong. I do that with pronouns. I'm not a big stickler for pronouns. I sort of let them slip around. But if I ever get anyone's pronouns wrong and you want me to correct myself, please let me know. I'm happy to do that. All right. I's feelings and intentions towards Jean. All right, here we go. There's our Page of Cups. And the Empress. And someone else? What is this? So, we know, or I know, that there are two people. There's you and there's this guy. And so my first thought was, because as I'm putting the cards down, I'm thinking who is whom, or who's who, and so Page of Cups, and I thought, oh well, that's him, right? That's him, and then I saw the Empress, and I thought, oh well, that's you, that's Jean, right? And then I saw the Queen of Coins, and now I'm not sure because we've got two women and one, let's call him a young person, right? So this happens sometimes where the cards come up and you're like, wait, is there another person? Is this an aspect of my personality? What is this with the court cards? And so we'll have to, we'll talk through it. We'll figure it out. And context will help us determine. And it's also possible, of course, that because we're asking from his perspective, there could be some context that we just don't have, right? But that he has access to and that we just don't know who it is, right? So let's note one thing to start, which is that both of these women outrank the page. And so if he's showing up as the page, and the Page of Cups, no less, right? Who showed up earlier today, although you all saw me shuffle very thoroughly. If he's showing up here as a page, cups, we might think that he's feeling a little shy or intimidated or uncertain about his feelings. With pages, we think of a lack of maturity, of starting something new, but also what's going to happen. There's a kind of anxiety there too, with the pages often because they don't know what they're doing yet, right? They're still trying to figure things out, and so we can kind of answer the question, I think, without necessarily identifying who each of these cards are. If we just look at the relationship of the card that best fits him and his relationship to them, right? So he maybe feels kind of outranked, would be one way to put it, and a little shy, a little intimidated, a little nervous, that kind of thing, right? And so um, that's the first and probably most important thing I think to note here. Um, if we look at the other cards that come up, we've got the Empress and we've got the Queen of Coins. So, well, with the Empress, she's sometimes called the mother of the tarot deck. And so, does he? Is there any reason he might be thinking about his mother? That's the thing that comes to mind. Um, is Does his mother know about you? Is there any way in which um, her presence, like, is it possible that she is in between you? Because if you are perhaps the Queen of Coins and you say that he thinks you're funny and intelligent, well, the Queen of Coins is absolutely intelligent and I'd say witty, but that would fit. So, is it possible um, that there's something to do with the Empress that's between the two of you? Um, that's something to consider, right? Like, and I don't have any of the context for it, so I don't. His mother in his life would be one thing to consider, and if she is, could she be deliberately or not getting in the way of things with you? That's something to consider. He hasn't mentioned her, so you have no idea. Yeah, so this could be a case where that context is just unavailable. Um, but I really do tend to read the cards, and it's not unique to me. I learned it from my teacher, Camellia Elias, but I think it is a little different than how a lot of tarot readers do it. A lot of readers would look at this and say, "Oh, these are all just aspects of yourself," right? But I really think that they're people. Almost most of the time, say 90% of the time, right? And so I think if we see three people, I think that there's a third person who's like in the picture, whether you know about that person or not, who is influencing his thoughts and feelings towards you, right? And that if this person is the Empress, I think that she's likely a mother or a mother figure, right? Doesn't have to be his actual mother, someone who kind of fits that position. And, it's obvious to say she's in between these other two people. Yeah. Yes. Let's look at the surprise card. It's two coins. And so you asked what his thoughts and feelings are. And I think here he's excited to have a valuable exchange with you. And with coins, I think more in terms of like conversation and getting to know one another, right? Exchanging ideas, exchanging values, that kind of thing when you see him. Um, in a couple of hours, it sounds like. Maybe, if you're available on Sunday, maybe you can give us an update and tell us, um, um, let's see, and you say he might think when he was sick, I was giving him advice and herbal remedies. Okay, okay. Um, so, the it could be that it's an person, his mother, right? But it could also just be more generally the idea of his mother, right? So, like, let's say that he's not, doesn't have a relationship. Maybe she's passed away or not close or whatever it might be. That doesn't mean she's not there just because she's not physically there. The idea of her could be there, right? It might be like, it could be like, I wonder, he might be thinking, I wonder what my mother would think of her, whether or not he's actually speaking to his mother or interacting with his mother in any way at all, right? Um, and of course, again, it may not be his actual mother. It could be some other person um, who fulfills that kind of function. You know what I mean? But it would be someone who an empress kind of rank as opposed to a page. Pages are messengers. Pages do what the higher ups tell them to, right? And so a whole lot of agency or ability to act of their own volition. Some, uh, you know, but if the empress or the queen tells the page to do something, well, the page really is going to need to do that thing, or else there will be consequences, right? And so that I think is the bigger thing to note here is the way that regardless of who exactly these other people are, um, he is outranked by them, and so a sense of nervousness, uncertainty, shyness. Right, the Page of Cups is often very very shy. Can also be a little moody. Right, doesn't always know how yet to control his emotions. Sensitive too. Right, something that might seem like a joke might actually really hurt. He's feeling a little overly sensitive at the moment. It's that kind of thing. So, I would take that note. I would think there may be something to do with the Empress that he feels is kind of in between the two of you at the moment. Could also be like mediating between an obstacle, right? It could be that he's told his mother about you and she thinks you're great, right? And so now, and now, like, she's linking as opposed to being an obstacle, right? That kind of thing. But in any event, with the surprise card here being 2 coins, you can expect a nice, bright, warm exchange between the two of you. In other words, I don't think there's, other than his maybe being kind of nervous or moody or shy, there's no reason for alarm here, right? There's no reason, like, the only tension I see here is in the ranking between the page and the other 2 figures. But, it's not like we've got the 10 of swords as the surprise. That would be like, "Oh boy, you need to be worried," right? But with 2 coins, that sounds like a nice, valuable, friendly chat. Okay. So I hope you, enjoy one another's company, you and your friend, and, I'd be curious if any Empress stuff comes up, let me know about it. I'd be curious to know. You're welcome, Jean. So next up on my list is Maria. So Maria, if you are here, you're welcome to let us know you're here and then to post your question in the chat. So we'll give Maria just a moment to respond. See her. So second call for Maria. If you can just let us know if you're here and or post your question. Um, Maria Scorpio 92 is the full username, I believe. And meanwhile, I'll say to anyone who might be joining, I'm Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, doing just a handful of free live readings today. List, but I might reopen it. I'm kind of thinking of going 4. So we'll see if Maria and Pink are here, and if not, maybe I'll reopen the list. I'm also available, and you can find more information about those by clicking the video description. You are also welcome to email me at tarot.hermit.lantern@gmail.com. We can talk about setting up a issue. Okay, so final call for Maria. And if I don't hear from Maria, we're going to move on to Pink. And the full name was Pinkis2100. So last call for Maria. So Pink is 21. If you are here, you're welcome to post your question in the chat. Let us know you're here. And we'll give 3 chances to Pink. And if I don't hear in just a moment, I'm going to reopen the list. A second call for Pink is 21. Okay. Maria and Pink is 21 are not here. So it's 3:40. I'm going to reopen the list right now. So if anyone here has not had a reading today, there we go. Taynita. Hi, Taynita. So I will add you, and maybe that'll be it for today. That'd be all right. So, Taynita, you're up. Welcome. I don't think I've read for you before. I don't recognize the username. If I have, I apologize. If you'd care to post your question in the chat, I'd be happy to pull some cards for you. Okay. Taynita is looking for a message from Spirit on this full moon. It is indeed a full moon. You've been looking for a job for some time, maybe some guidance there. Okay, great. Happy to do that. Cool. I'm glad. Of course, I love reading for my regulars, but I love when I get to read for someone new also. That's great. So we'll pull 3 cards for you. And we're looking for a message from Spirit in honor of the full moon, perhaps having to do with a job, some guidance surrounding a job. I'm glad you got lucky today. That's sort of one reason why I kind of wanted to hop on sort of without planning it, because um, the people who are regulars, who I love, by the way, they are eager. And so, like, when I plan the live streams in advance, they're there early and they're in the chat, which I love. I think that's great. But other folks who maybe are new might get missed. You know what I mean? So that's one reason I wanted to hop on today. I thought maybe I'd find someone who I'd missed in the past, and that turns out to be true. So I'm glad of that. Okay, so we're going to pull some cards for Tainita. A message from Spirit in honor of the full moon, perhaps having to do with guidance regarding a job. Here we go. Well, Queen of Batons. 3 swords. And the Lovers. So, Queen of Batons very well likely represents you. And I'm looking at the way that I'm trying to decide how to phrase what I'm going to say. So the Queen of Batons has the baton, which she can use to work, right? And so you're asking about, like, what is a message of guidance for you regarding your job situation? And so the Queen of Batons wants to work, right? We use batons to build, also to compete with others, and it can be to build relationships, but it's also about, think about what it's a stick, right? You could, like, build a house with it if you wanted, right? And so she wants to do that, but instead of working, she's got swords, right? And so here I would think of little annoying things. We can also think with the traditional quote unquote meaning of the 3 of swords or 3 of spades in traditional cartomancy is loss, right? And so we could think, here you are ready to work, right? But instead of working, there's just like an emptiness, right? There's not work there, right? And so I think the first 2 cards are kind of validating what you already know, right? So it's where things get interesting, I think, is the 3rd card here, which of course is the Lovers. Now, if we were in a relationship context, we could think about it in those terms, but we're not really. You haven't told me anything that makes me think about love or relationship. And so here I think about choice. And so what we have on this card is a person in the middle who has 2 options. Yeah. And has to choose between those options. And so this suggests to me, I look at the way that the first card, who I'm reading again as you, Tainita, has a crown, right? And then on the Lover's card, one of the 3 figures also has a crown, right? And so I see this as you're here without the job, right? But then later you will be up for a job, right? Someone, the guy in the middle, will have a choice to make between you or another candidate, right? So the message of these cards so far is you are available and you are to work, but right now there's just a void, right? However, in the future, if we read past, present, future, in the future, the situation is coming where there is a possibility that you could get hired, that this guy will hire you over the other person. But it's kind of showing a 50-50 chance, right? It's like it's one or the other. So I think what I'd like to do is pull two more cards and we'll put up here to indicate the best way to approach this situation. Like, what could you do to make it most likely that you get the job? And then we'll put one down here underneath, and that's what to avoid, what you should not do. Okay, so let's do that. Cool. 8 batons at the top. And underneath is the Empress. There's our Empress again. The Empress is stalking this live stream, everybody. And sort of the Page of Cups, too. Okay, so what you should do is 8 batons. This is the like team player. Eights are large groups. They can mean other things too, but in this context, this is like the workplace, and this is like you can place your baton and weave it in with all the other 7 people you're working with. So emphasizing that you're really good at working well with others, that you can cooperate as opposed to being like maybe a little competitive, that kind of thing, is going to be your best bet, as opposed to work together with people, as opposed to like you're not their mom, right? Like, your job is not to take care of everyone. Your job is to learn how to work with everyone. Does that distinction make sense? Like here, the Empress is going to have to take care of everything, right? Here, you and everybody else in the group are equally contributing in order to get the work done, right? So those are the two main things that I would see. Um, and let me just read your comment in the chat. I battle managing people even though I've been in management positions. Yeah, and so I think if we're thinking in that context, then here it's like the trick with managing people is to get them to do the work for themselves. Like they do it. You delegate to them and they do it and you support them, as opposed to the Empress in this position who might be the kind of person who's like micromanaging things almost to the point of doing it for them. And so like if you come up in an interview and there's somebody here, or maybe even in your application materials, emphasizing that if it's a manager position, that what you excel at, what you do excellently, is helping other people to do their job well, as opposed to doing the work for them, because then you get totally overwhelmed. You have a whole team underneath you, and if you're like doing their work for them, nobody can do all of that, right? And so eventually you get disgruntled, grumpy, you burn out, right? Whereas here it's emphasizing, as a manager, you get everybody to participate equally in a way that creates this perfect weave. Yeah. So there's your full moon message. You're ready to work right now. There isn't any, but in the future, you will be up for a position, and your best move is to emphasize just what I talked about, the working together as a team, everybody contributing equally, as opposed to you like just saying, I'll just handle it, right? Which honestly can be tough, because I struggle with this myself, where I'm like, rather than having this difficult conversation with this person, I'm just going to do it for them because it's easier for me to do it for them. But then they come back to you again next time, and then somebody else is doing that. And then you get upset and disgruntled, and you're like, I'm not your mom, right? Do your job. And this card, I think in this context, is saying like you're willing to work with people and have those maybe tough conversations so that you don't get to that point of being disgruntled and all of that. So there we go. All right. It's almost 4 o'clock. I've been going over an hour and on, so I think I'm going to wind down here. Thank you to everyone who was present in the chat today and who I got to read for. This was a lot of fun. Welcome to anyone who might have been new. If I didn't get to read for you today, I'd be very happy to read for you in a future live stream. I am also available for paid private readings, and you can check out the Linktree link in the video description. You are also welcome to email me to discuss setting up a reading at tarot.hermit.lantern@gmail.com. So happy May Day to everyone. Happy Beltane, or yesterday May's Eve, depending on which you celebrate, if any. It's the beginning of summer just about now, and take care of each other. I'll plan to see you all on Sunday, Pacific time, West Coast, United States time. And I'll see you then. Be kind to each other in the meantime. Have a nice weekend and see you all soon.